Would anyone like to share about what would Jesus do if he were me and that thought? Good opportunity, because I'll tell you what, I'm going to be sharing a lot today. So you can break it up. It's going behind you.
So this week when it snowed, I had to shovel the sidewalks around the property. And while I was doing that, I saw my neighbor who is probably 50 something.
Old.
Old. He was old.
I know what you're saying.
But he
How old are you, Isaiah?
17.
17. You see, it's all in perspective.
But he was struggling, so it was freezing cold, and if I feel like if I didn't have Jesus, I'd just run right back inside, in the warm. But instead, I stayed and helped him for an extra 20 minutes. And in that 20 minutes, I learned pretty much a lot about his life. He works third shift because his mother has Alzheimer's. She's 93 years old, and it's just him and his mother. And last year, his brother actually passed away, so now it's just him and her in the house. And it's a big house, so I know he feels lonely. And I feel like helping him, like, helped me learn about him, and that way I can build a connection with him. And if he's open to it, I can talk to him about Jesus. I can talk to him about anything he's struggling with. I can help him. And I feel like just simply shoveling with him helped build a really good connection.
Thank you so much for sharing. Thank you. We have a lot to learn, don't we? Beautiful. Beautiful. Anyone else? Are you grabbing it for you or grabbing it for anyone else? Always interrupt me, so as I'm going on, I'm going to be talking. This is the last week in our vision series, and I'm just kind of doing a culmination where I want to share from my heart about some of the stuff that we're up to as a church, that you're up to, I know already. But this is the heart of who we are. And, I was thinking about this. In some ways, it's so simple. We complicate scriptures. We complicate the religion of Christianity so much sometimes. And it gets convoluted. And when I really look at the scriptures in its entirety, in its wholeness, we know in the New Testament it talks about the two great commandments. So if you break down in the very essence of why we're here, it's truly to love God with all of our hearts, strength, and soul, and minds, right? And all that encompasses. And then to love the other, to treat either other people how we'd want to be treated. And then go and make disciples. Right? Maybe that's the one that maybe we're not quite sure what that looks like. I feel like, is there like a scratching sensation? Is it me? Good. It's good now. All right. The microphone somewhere. Not a good sign. This idea of going and make disciples. When you see yourself as a disciple and you see yourself going out to love the other, exactly what Isaiah just shared. Just go out and make a difference in the world. You meet a need. It's right there before us. And as you step into that, we just don't know how God is going to show up in that moment. And you just keep showing up day in and day out. But then you do, over time, start to invest in another person. You start to see people on a regular basis. And you say, let me invest some time and energy into your life. Start sharing life together. Start sharing things that matter to you. Start making connections. And that's the process of discipleship. And it's a beautiful relationship. And then the last part of it is just go and be the good news. Wherever you go, just go and be the good news. In as simple form as see a need, meet a need. You hear someone's story, lean into it. Take the time to make yourself available. That's it in its essence. I was talking to someone the other day who I would suggest is not of the Christian faith, but we were talking about something that we had a mutual affinity for, and it was about making a difference in young people's lives. And I found myself, and I don't usually do this, but I found myself saying, "Hey, are you a Christian?" And I looked at me like it was one of those like didn't know how to answer. So I quickly said, "Well, are you atheist?" Because I'm just trying. It's okay. Like I'm just trying to make quickly. I don't care where you're at in the spectrum is what I was trying to get to, right? And so let's just say somewhere in there. And so then it was probably one of the best conversations I've had with someone, and I felt like I was talking all about the kingdom of God. Now, it probably didn't feel like that at all to her. But in my mind, and what I was sharing was the church being the church. We were talking about kids that are aging out of the foster care system. And I was talking about the plight of what happens. And I was thinking about my son, Terry, who's 18, and I think he just finished his first term or whatever it's called at college, right? And I was sitting there going, say Diane and I, before he got into college, right? I'm saying, we're done with you, Terry. We're done. No more phone calls, no more money, no more nothing. You're cut off. Go and figure it out. That's what's happening to many kids that are aging out of the foster care system. And this young lady that I was talking to, she's got a very good job right now, and she's in designing. But it's not enough. I want more meaning in my life. I want to make a difference. And so as I was sharing about this story, I said, do you want to get involved in this? She started leaning in. I started saying, this is what church is supposed to be about. This is what Christianity is all about. It's just stepping into these lives that often are overlooked. And just get in the game. And I talked about mentoring them. And she's like, I want to mentor them. I want to be a part of that. And it was I said, I don't understand why people have such a problem with Christianity. It talks about love the other. It talks about show compassion to people. It talks about treat other people like you want to be treated. It's about giving dignity and respect to another human being. It's about standing up for what's wrong in the world. It's about going the extra mile. It's about showing up when no one else shows up. And she says to me, she's like, I've got goosebumps. And I'm like, I do too. Because this is what gets me excited about living this kingdom life. And I just sprinkled that in there a little bit. I said, I know you might have this awful image of what God is and what church is, but I'm telling you, this is what I believe is the essence of what it's all about. If you just lean into it. And I'm just trusting God. There's no agenda in there. It's just hey, just let's get in the game together. I'll trust God for everything else. And I'm encouraging you as a church, just start on that path. And trust God for the results, because it's not about the results. It's about, will we show up? And I'm telling you, it was the most natural conversation. It was the most exhilarating conversation, because it's just simply sharing about, here's a need that's in our society that we can do something about. And almost every person I've shared it with says, after I'm done sharing, they're like, tell me more about it because I want to get involved. When you sign up for something bigger than yourself, and you care about people deeply, and you share that story with another person, I'm telling you, they're going to want to get involved. And I'll come back to that in a little bit, because I want to share with us this year and the next 5 years, some things that we're talking about doing as a church. Very simply, I know some of you know this, some of you don't, so I'll just quickly say it. Our long-term strategy, just so you know, is to plant another church with another business. Okay, so many of you know we own 4 Echoes at Gristmill Pond in Seekonk, And the reason why we do that's a nonprofit, that's another revenue stream to help bless the different people groups that we've talked about, the inner city youth, foster care kids, kids with disabilities, and homelessness. Okay? So we want to do this again. We want to be the church in another community so that we can keep reaching out to other people that are in a different community, find out what their needs are, come alongside them and help figure it out. Create another business opportunity so that we can create jobs for people. We can create community service opportunities, right? And we're just going to keep doing that as God leads. That's the essence of it, all right? So I can't tell you the details of that, but that's what I believe God has breathed into us. Now, part of that is the exciting journey of how that plays out, because being here at this school, right, at Highlander, just by being at Highlander Charter School, we have to deal with elevators being put in on a Sunday morning. It's all right. It's not about a building. It's about a people. It's about your purpose. It's about your passion. It's about why you're here and what you want to do with your life. And it doesn't really matter where we meet. Just gather together so that you can be sent out to go and be the good news. In its essence. That's what Jesus did, if you think about it. Jesus was walking with his people on a regular basis, just walking with them, doing life together, and said, boys, here, go, 2 by 2. Go out and live it out for a little while, and then come back bruised up, beat up, and let's talk about it. Because it's not pretty sometimes. When you're in the game of life, guess what? It doesn't all go as planned, and that's all right. Because guess what? When we gather back together, that's when we can find hope and re-energizing and everything that we need to go back out again. And that's the essence of why we gather together in this worship of God. And so I want to piggyback from what we talked about last week. We talked about discipleship, just to give you a little picture of how we view discipleship here as a church. And a couple of times a year, we'll take a series on a Sunday morning. It could be a 4-week series, 6-week series, something like that. But what I'm trying to do is I choose a series that I really feel can move us in a direction, right? Can take us from here to there. And I feel like just a Sunday morning teaching for 35, 45 minutes doesn't cut it. So it's like, hey, can you take this teaching and then get into groups? It could be with 2 people. It could be with 12 people. It doesn't really matter. It could be in a coffee shop. It could be in your home. Doesn't matter. But will you take the time to dialogue with another person so that you can find out how it's hitting them? What are their perspectives? What are they learning? Right? And so if we do that a couple of times a year, that's like 10, 12 weeks where you're with other people strengthening your faith. Right? Growing in your knowledge and your understanding, being able to ask your questions in a non-judgmental atmosphere, right? In a safe environment. So we want to do that a couple of times a year. And then behind the scenes right now, we're creating what, I don't know if this is going to land on the name, but it's kind of like know your why. Know your why. Like, why are you here? And we want to create an experience around knowing your why. And so I'm taking through 7 people right now as like a beta test, just to kind of figure it out. And we're going to put together a pretty neat experience where you get to come alongside other people. Say there's like 8 or 10 people, and we're at our house, we're having dinner, we're having wine, we're drinking and eating and getting to know each other on a very friendly basis, right? Getting to know each other's story. And then in that, we start to shift and start talk about real life stuff that matters. And we'll use a couple of resources, a couple of different exercises that help you kind of draw out the things that God has put in you. We start to draw and say, what are your passions? What are the things that kind of light you up? And then over time, we start to figure out, well, how can we make that possible? And I was thinking about maybe at the end of that experience that we choose a project. We choose something that we're going to give ourselves to. And you're not in that alone. We come alongside and you figure out, how can we support you in that? But now you're launched, and now you're out there, and you're playing in the game. And now we just figure it out together, all right? And then I'm thinking about somehow building in some sort of pilgrimage experience in that. I don't even know what that means, but it's the idea of getting outside of our norm. Mark, how many cell phones do you have? Where's Mark? How many cell phones you got? 3. Why? Because he took them away from his kids. Good parenting. Right? This idea that, he's getting a standing no from some people. This idea, we need to do it to ourselves. We need to parent ourselves. Leave your phones away. Go on a pilgrimage. Get with a few other people. Go on a hike. Have a spiritual time to quiet ourselves and allow God to speak to us. How many of you do yoga? Raise your hands. Raise them up high if you do yoga. Okay, why do you do yoga? It's usually for the spiritual, right? This thing, you want to center yourself. You want to have a quiet time. You need to be refreshed and re-energized and say, geez, what is this all about? And you ask the deep questions. The thing that I want to do, though, instead of yoga like by yourself, it's kind of like go on a journey, go on a walk with other people. And maybe you learn something more about their lives. I could go on for hours, so I have to be quick, so I'm sorry. I got a lot to cover, that's why I say that. The other thing for discipleship is that we want to create individual resources. Because each of you, like, I'm like what do I want to say? I'm pretty good at like delegating and empowering people. I don't like micromanaging. So this is why our discipleship looks the way it does. Because I'm like, you're all adults. You can figure it out. Really. And we're all uniquely wired so differently. Like the things that get me lit up and how I grow in Christ might be very different than what lights you up. But guess what? I would have to suggest that the scriptures and prayer have to become somewhat integrated into that if we're going to know who God is and know the stories and know why he did what he did. So you have to kind of figure that out. And there's a lot of resources. We live in an age where you have so many resources at your disposal. Find one or two that just really help you to grow. I would also suggest it should be with another person. You know what I mean? Like it shouldn't just be on your own. You should have your time with God. That's a beautiful thing. But then go and share what you're learning. Share your questions, share your doubts, your fears, your prayer requests. Share with other people. To me, that's what discipleship is all about. I don't think discipleship was ever meant to be just me and God. That's just one aspect of it. All right? So we're going to try to come alongside you and offer different things. We'll even offer different online seminars. I'm going to try to do different podcasts with different teachings and stuff like that. So great, you can plug it in while you're driving or you're at the gym or whatever. But there's so many great resources out there. Just choose the ones that are going to continually build you up. And then there's lots more there, but we're going to continue on. So the one that I feel is overlooked quite a bit is this idea of discipleship in the workplace. Think about it. Most people work in 40, 50, 60 hours a week with a group of people. If you just show up with that question, what would Jesus do if he were here? When people are gossiping, when people are stepping over people to get ahead, there's going to be opportunities. I trust that the Holy Spirit will whisper things to you. How can you come alongside them and love these people? Get to know their stories. Why? What makes them tick? How can you get them involved in giving them something to live for beyond just the 45, 60 hours a week that they work? How can you help them attach a cause to their lives? I'm telling you, you start a project yourself that you're up to, and you start sharing with the people at your work, all of a sudden, you'll have other people joining you. The people that you're kind of looking at and going, that person's a jerk, blah, 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 blah. All of a sudden, they're your teammate on a project that matters. That's, to me, the church being the church. The form of discipleship. It's allowing God to use you and grow you. Because if I'm trying to disciple someone that I don't really like very much, guess what? God's going to work with me. He's going to work on me. And then in that, I'm going to learn how to love that person through that. There's a beautiful thing there, okay? The next thing is, I'm going to just look at different people groups, if you will, because I want to give you a picture of the church and our vision and the things that we're up to. And these are areas that, of course, you can plug into anytime. We'd love for you to. You know, some of you might be intimidated when I say, oh, everyone should have what I just call it, a project. Everyone should choose a project. Some of you go, oh, gosh, I don't want to do that. And I get that. So we have projects going on a pretty regular basis that you can just jump into. I would love for you to take the story that I just shared, and if you want to get involved in the foster care thing, then it becomes your story. And it's a project we're working on together, and then you own it because now it's your project. And then you share with your friends and say, hey, I'm doing this great project. Let me tell you about it. And you get them all pumped up about it, right? So we can team up together on this. So when we talk about homelessness, the grander vision, if you will, right, is that I'm a big proponent of, I think people grow and heal best in community with. And when I mean that, I'm talking about living together. So if we have 10 homeless people living together with 2 or 3 of folks that are Christ followers, people that want to make a difference in the world, people who want to come alongside them and walk with them in life, right? So I want to buy a property that allows for dignity and respect, for growth and humanity, to be the essence of what it's like to help come around them and get involved in their lives. And I hate my language because it's like us and them. It's not. Just trying to articulate that. Come alongside 10 human beings just like ourselves that we're all broken, but together we're on a journey towards healing and restoration. Then we understand what their needs are, and then we use wraparound services through the church, right? Some of you are great at helping people write job resumes, helping people find out what their skills are, helping them get an internship, helping get a job opportunity, right? Help with transportation, help with all the different things that go into helping a homeless person no longer be homeless, right? But the number one thing we take away from them, if we have a place for them to live, they don't have to worry about the stress of finding a place in a shelter every night. It doesn't take long if you put yourself in that situation for you to well up. If that matters to you, you're going to be passionate about this. I'm telling you, when you share this story, it's not going to be hard to engage people in this journey. And it's not church folks. I hope you're seeing that. It's the people that you're with on a regular basis. When you share the story of you being the church, it's attractive to anyone and everyone. And that's what I want to see. That's when I think about God's kingdom coming to all people. Then it gets messy and it's beautiful because you start attracting people. Like we talked the other week, and Diane got another letter from another lady from the Women's ACI. You know what comes with that? Stuff. Bad word too. Dawn, you could preach right now. Just kidding. She'd say the other word. Stuff happens, right? Stuff comes with that. Because all of a sudden, the woman that needs help is a lesbian, a former drug addict. She was abused. And she's looking for people to accept her and love her. But the church is against this and this and this. What? It's not about what we're against, it's what we're for. For people to be set free and realize the fullness of life. And if you have to navigate your beliefs around that, navigate it. Don't make the other person have to jump over your spiritual hurdles because they don't understand doctrine. You understand what I'm saying? Get into their life and figure out them. Walk alongside them and love them where they're at. It gets messy. Just saying this, I'm offending people. I get it. It's hard. I don't quite understand it all. I don't know why certain verses say what they say. I don't. But I know that God calls us to love people right where they're at. Thank you. You talk about people that end up homeless. Why do they end up homeless? If you have to ask yourself that question. Without judgment. Because usually what we do is they deserve it. They made that mistake and that mistake. If they wouldn't have gotten hooked up on drugs, if they wouldn't have done this, if they wouldn't have done that, then they wouldn't be homeless, dang it. The other word? I always look at Dawn. That's my way out. I am. That's good. You get what I'm saying, though, right? What if the church had been the church on their way to homelessness? When they weren't yet homeless. When one person stood up and got involved. But now that they're homeless, we have something to do. We have to figure out how to not have them homeless anymore. That is a messy, long. That's why we're empowered by God. That's why I love God with all your heart, soul, strength, and mind matters so much. We can't do this in our own strength. But my gosh, together we can. All things are possible with Christ. So that would be like the bigger plan would be able to have a property. But in the meantime, since we don't have the property, what do? We come alongside. And many of you know Mark takes his music team and others. They come and they go down to the Matheson Street Church in Providence on a fairly regular basis, right? And they get to know people. And Jerry spends a lot of his weekends there. And Jerry goes, and I say to Jerry, you're my eyes and my ears. You can just find one person. We'll figure out a way to come around that one person. And if they're homeless this year, maybe next year they won't be homeless anymore because we came around them. That's what we're doing here and now. okay? And then where the church could be the church is with wraparound services. So Jerry, we're trying to figure out, there's a lot of needs, obviously. So as we figure out what those needs are, we do need the church to step up and help with meeting those needs. So if that's something that you're passionate about, it's a great opportunity to get involved. Okay? Time is it? What time? What is it? 12 past? All right. So now with foster care kids, we do several different things. And so if you've been here for a while, you know that I brought in a representative from Boys Town, which is an organization out of Providence and Portsmouth and whatnot. And my goal in bringing people here to talk about this issue is to help raise our awareness, right? I'm just hoping I know some families are already fostering kids here or have in the past. So if some of you say, you know what, you hear that and you go, I want to make a difference. I want to foster a child, and maybe I can adopt that child, right? I would love for that to happen. So just giving vision to that and giving awareness to that. And I'll just trust God for the results of that. So we'll keep bringing people in, just keep raising that awareness up. But I think I just told you, so I started a project. My project for that leadership thing I was telling you about is I am starting a mentor program for kids that age out of the foster care system, okay? And I'm gathering 10 mentors. I'm going to have 10 young people. And then, again, if any of you would like to get involved on wraparound services, please let me know, because it's an opportunity for you to get involved. And it's, in my mind, I'm keeping it pretty simple. It's the mentors is 1 hour a week minimum. Just get to know the young person. Go out for a cup of coffee, go out for lunch, dinner, whatever it is, and hear their story. Find out what they're up to. Find out what their needs are. And then report back to me and just to help me understand what these needs are, so then we can come back to the church and say, here are the needs. How can we help? And then when I step way back, one of my, again, the grander vision or the bigger vision is to also acquire another property. It's very similar to homelessness, because think about it, it's a group of people that are adults, they're young adults, and they need help to figure out their future. And so when I think about an 18-year-old, and I'm like, my gosh, we've got to come around them. If we do, they're able to, if they have a place to live in community with us, right? They're able to get college pretty much paid for. And if they do that, they're able to get health care benefits. They're with a group of people that believe in them, come alongside them to support them, encourage them. And so we're in the process. I have to behave myself, right? Kara's We're in the process of prayerfully considering a property. So you can pray that God allows for a lot of money to come through, okay? On this property, there's 4 buildings, 17 acres of land, and we could do all the things that we're talking about doing. And I believe that young people need a place, and they need people. I'm so excited about the possibility in the church and enter into that person's story. And I was thinking about, obviously I have 3 kids, but I was thinking about Jenna and Terry being in college, and I'm sitting there going, Diane and I have already talked about this. I don't know if we agree on it or not, but that's a whole nother story. But after they're done with college, I'm like on the 2-year plan. I think she might be on the 20, like she'd like to stay with us forever. But I'm like, if they want to come home after college and live with us for a couple of years, my thing is so they can pay off their school debt and they can still figure out life. Awesome, right? Because our goal is to launch them into this world as well as possible, right? To give them the hope in the future that they can figure out God in that path. And so I step back and say, what about these 18-year-olds who have gone from home to home to home, who have all these things stacked against them, and they don't have a hope in a future right now? But my God, if they come to this place and they can be part of our community, and they can get all the different things that they need to get ahead in life, we're going to do it. We're going to figure that out. And so I'm hoping that by starting this mentor program, all of a sudden, maybe these 10 people become the first 10 people when we secure a property, God willing. They can live in community with us. And then we can give them a true hope and a true future. Not just talk about it. And then kids with disabilities. Many of you know we partner with Greenlock Therapeutic Riding Center. And a couple times a year, we'll just go and bless them on their property, right? And just clean up debris and paint and clean and do different things because they do a great thing with kids with disabilities. And they use horses to provide hippotherapy. And we just want to support them in that endeavor. But I just talked to Edith, the lady that owns it, and I said, Edith, I really want to do something for the parents of these kids that are given 24/7 care. And they don't have time for themselves. They don't have time for their spouse. Right? And I want to provide them with date nights. And I want to provide them with opportunities to drop their kids off in a safe environment. So Jessica, there's Jessica. Where are you, Jess? Jessica and I have been talking about teaming up with Highlander during the summer and doing a beta program. Maybe we set up a room here in the school and have five young people that have disabilities to come so that they can be dropped off maybe on a Wednesday night and a Saturday morning for a few hours, just so that parents can find rest, so they can work on their marriage, so they can have time for themselves, right? A beautiful endeavor. And then the last thing is we work with kids in the next generation. And a lot of times that's kids from the inner city. And so we do a lot of things here at the school with mentoring and internships and community service opportunities. Every week now, I pick up, my dad and I, actually, Dad, raise your hand. My dad, raise it up high so they can see. That's my dad. So my dad and I will come here on Mondays and Wednesdays and Tuesdays and Thursdays on opposite weeks. We pick up 7 young people, take them from here, and we go to the Baldwin Elementary School, where Dawn has a program already in place. And she has volunteers that go there on a regular basis. And these young people now are like role models. They're teachers' assistants, and they get along there. And I'm telling you, like after like the first time being there, the kids are like holding onto their legs, don't leave, don't leave. And when they come back, they're high-fiving and hugging them. It's like this great experience for these young people. And I want to do things that allow this school and the kids that we come up in paths with to have that hope in the future. And we did a summer camp last summer in the Bristol Commons. It's a similar thing. It's like, how do we get into these areas where the kids need hope for their future and they need resources, and they need people to come alongside them. And so we're going to continue to look for opportunities just to partner up with people so that we can truly make an impact on the next generation, so that homelessness doesn't happen, so that they don't get incarcerated, so that all these other things aren't in play. And that's what the church can do when we all rally together. See that? See what I'm talking about? That's our vision. This is what we get to be a part of. And those are the places that you get to plug into. But I think that gets me excited. But the thing that maybe excites me even more is finding out what your dreams are, what your passions are, and then coming alongside you and figure out how we can support you in that. And that's what will come out of that Know Your Why experience that we were talking about earlier. I hope that every person goes through that every single year. That's my goal. Get every single person that comes through this church to go to the Know Your Why experience every year, because we're always up to something as a church, because God is always up to something. And we're going to figure out what he's up to, and then we're going to join him in that. All right, let's pray. Jesus, I am grateful to you. I'm thank you that you're stirring us up. I'm thank you for your vision. I'm grateful for your son. Jesus, let us be the church that would be pleasing unto you. God, at the essence, we just want your will to be done. We want to see what you're up to and just join you in that and participate in building this kingdom. Help us keep saying yes. Help us have courage. Help us to be healthy, to be healed from our hurts and our wounds as we serve the other, to do your work inside of us. And let us bring the good news wherever we go. In Jesus' name, amen. Thank you. Thank you for being the church.